Just do it anyway. Just click it anyway. It happened. Wow. You did the thing. Do the thing, click the button, send the money. Do the thing, click the button, send the money. I'm sure it's that way around. I'm sure it's that way around. You good shit to wear in public. You're muted, Brian. Brian, you've muted yourself.
Shit. Well,
Yeah, you muted yourself.
okay, I should be unmuted now. I forgot I muted during the starting soon. I haven't said anything important. It's okay. We're okay. We're okay. Sorry, guys. That's just normal. That's just every episode. I do this like every time now. Um, crap. What was I saying? Oh, I was talking about the shirts. The shirts. Okay, yeah. So like most of my t-shirt wardrobe, at least, are keyboard related shirts, and a lot of them have text on them. That normal people won't understand. So like I'll wear them out, and then people will just like walk up to me and be like, "What does that mean? Like what is that?" And I'm just like, why do you feel the need to interact with me just because you saw it? This literally happened 2 days ago at Costco. I'm wearing my Dolce shirt, right? I'm not wearing it now, but I was wearing it at Costco.
That's a good shirt.
It's a phenomenal shirt. It's definitely one of my favorites. But like I was just walking around shopping in Costco, and this older gentleman comes up to me. He's probably 70, and he's really tall too. I think he's taller than me. He's like 6'5", 6'6".
Right. Okay. So he's a really tall guy.
He's a very tall guy. And like he walks up and he kind of like looks over at my shirt, and like then he looks up at me as we're kind of passing each other, and he's like, "What is Dolce?" And I was just kind of like taken aback. Like I never like walk up to people in public and I'm like, well, "Tell me about your shirt." Like that's just like something I never do, and like it's always awkward when other people do that to me. But he was like really interested in my Dolce shirt, and I was like, well, it's kind of like a computer adjacent product from the 90s or whatever. I don't remember when it came out, but yeah, kind of a dated technology thing. And
Yeah.
he was like, oh, okay, and he just kept walking. I was like, I wish we didn't have that interaction, but
Wow.
all right.
That
Anyways,
poor guy. He's gonna be. I met some nutter in wherever you were in Costco today, and he was telling me about this Dolce thing. It was very weird. It was very strange. What a strange guy.
yeah, people just trying to be friendly. I mean, I guess it's not like he was mean or rude about it. I'm kind of antisocial in public. I'm kind of I'm introverted. I talk a lot online, obviously, but I'm not the kind of guy that just talks to random people left and right in public. That's just not really my thing. So I mean, nothing against him. It was just kind of an interesting interaction because like it seems like almost no matter what keyboard shirt I wear, I get some kind of comment on it.
Really interesting because I wear mine quite often, and no one ever asks me. Like,
All,
no, maybe that's just British people for you, but no one ever asks me.
yeah, it's almost like a guarantee. If I go into a public place, someone will ask me about my shirt. But oh well,
Interesting.
that's totally fine. Welcome to the pre-show, everyone. We're still waiting on the bot to ping. It's been 12 and a half minutes now. Hashtag me6things, I guess. That's because you terrify people, Jay. I don't think Jay is not terrifying in person. Let me tell you.
No, I'm
Not
the least
even
terrifying
remotely.
person in the world.
He's like
Yeah, I'm the least terrifying person in the world.
it's like the minimal amount of intimidation comes from Jay in person.
Thanks for that vote of confidence, Brian. Thank you.
That's a good thing, right? You don't want to intimidate people. You don't want to scare people. You don't want to terrify people. That'd be a bad thing, right? You want to be friendly and approachable and bright. And you are. And you are. You really are.
Sure. Okay. Good recovery there, Brian. Good recovery.
I mean, unless you want to intimidate people, I'm sure you could probably do that too. It just might take a little effort.
Maybe. I'm not the type to try and intimidate people. No. I'd rather just not speak to people. That's the easiest thing. I just won't speak to them.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why does everyone feel the need to talk to me in public? I don't want to talk to everyone.
Yeah. I don't need to intimidate people. I don't need to be friendly with people. I'll just ignore people. Yeah. I don't know.
I think that was a compliment. Look, you guys are haters, all right? You're just being haters.
Someone's just sent me a link. I think they're watching the stream right now. Actually, they've just sent me a link and they've said, "What do you think to this?" And it's a set called GMK Diner. Um, I didn't even know this was a thing.
I don't know most GMK sets these days. I mean, there's several new ones every day.
I mean,
At least in
um,
Check, right? So it's like, how do you keep up with all of them?
yeah,
The answer
yeah.
is you don't. Um,
Well, exactly. You
you just
don't.
don't.
Yeah,
It's just kind of the way it
I'm
is.
aware of lot of stuff happening, but yeah, I completely missed that one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh my god, this bot is crazy late today. My gosh.
We need to write a better bot. That's what we need to do, Brian. We need to sit down and we need to write our own bot that picks up things from Discord. And thank you for covering my face with the starting soon
I
screen.
thought you
I
might like
really,
that.
really appreciate that. Yeah,
I totally forgot that I
really
can't do
appreciate
that
it.
while streaming. Look, it's the pre-show. If shit's gonna happen and go wrong, then the pre-show is when you want it to happen, anyways.
Sure.
Oh man. A quick shout out to Jay Hambone, who did sub with Twitch Prime for 4 months. Thank you so much. He does follow up and say, "I will catch this VOD. Please do tape mod with packing tape, 2 to 4 layers." So I do want to say one thing, and I'll probably say this again once we officially get started. We're not actually doing modifications on keyboards on this stream today. We're going to be talking about a lot of things revolving around those, but we're not actually going to be performing any keyboard modifications today on stream.
For sure.
Just wanted to clarify that. GMK certainly aren't keeping up with it either. I mean, how can they, right? How?
Yeah, I mean that we talked about this last week, didn't we? Or not last week, 2 weeks ago because we missed last week. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a thing. Is GMK? Go back and watch the other show. It's easier to say that than it is to go over all of that chat again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It actually the topic that we talked about with GMK on the last episode, which I think was 2 weeks ago today.
It was 2 weeks ago.
We
Yeah.
last I'll talk about what happened last week, of course, as well later. But yeah, that episode went really well. It was super well received. People seemed to really enjoy it. The Twitch chat was like insane. That episode, I just could not
It's
keep
really
up with
good.
the
Yeah.
conversations in chat, which is like kind of a good thing, because it means we're at least talking about something that people are interested in, and hopefully we'll see that today as well. But yeah, great episode. I think there was a lot of good information shared, there's a lot of good opinions shared, and yeah,
It was a good
definitely,
conversation. Yeah.
yeah, definitely go check out the VOD if any of you guys are interested in that. It was a really good time.
The Pokemon kid's actually going to come and visit me next week. He's going to come to the workshop on Tuesday, I think, which is going to be interesting. It'd be nice to see him for the first time in about 2 years. So it'd be good to
Nice.
catch up. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Storsness says, did I get that name right? Storsna? I think I got it right. Storsness saying, sipping some Macallan 12 and typing on a brand new
Nice.
ultramarine Clippa, while some wholesome gentlemans talk about metallic rectangles hypers. Hey, man. That
Nice.
sounds like a good time. I mean,
That's
unfortunately,
not a bad thing.
instead of watching some wholesome gentlemen, you get me and Jay. But hopefully that'll be good enough. Hopefully the Macallan 12 year can make up for it. I'm joking, of course. I'm joking, of course. Don't give me that look, Jay. I see the way you're looking at me right now. Shout out to Macallan 12 year. It's been a while since I've had some scotch. But I'm glad you like listening to two boomers talk about metallic rectangles. And today we won't even be talking about very much metal. We'll be talking more about less dense materials.
Yeah, yeah. Very thin materials. Someone's just sent me another link saying that apparently the German word Dolch has an Italian word that means the same thing, which is pugnale. So we need some pugnale shirts.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm kind of fed up with this bot. We're almost 19 minutes in and it still hasn't pinged. But unless I cover your face again, Jay, I can't actually manually ping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have you ping the announcements channel, Jay, while I turn off the Mi6 bot real
Wow.
quick.
Okay, I can do that. I think I
That
can
way
do
it
that.
doesn't decide to ping in
I,
like 20 minutes from now and people get double pinged. But I think we need to start the show soon. So
Gee.
oh my god, I have to. Okay, yeah. Just ping the server. We'll be all right. Do at here, and people can be upset that they
I,
get pinged.
it, I've already done that everyone, so it's already
Okay,
done.
perfect. This is what I was hoping for. Jay is a millennial though. I yeah.
Am I?
I think
Oh, I don't know. I don't know where.
I
I don't
think
know
you
where the
are.
boomer millennial type thing
I don't know
ends.
the
Right?
exact year. I know I'm a millennial, and I think it definitely spans for several years past me, which you are. So, um, and by several, I mean only a couple, because obviously you're not that old, Jay.
Oh yeah, okay. So I do class as a millennial because a millennial is someone who's born between 1981 and 1997. So yes, I am definitely a millennial.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
millennials are about what you said, 97. It goes up to 97. Wow.
Yeah,
Um,
81 to 97. That's a millennial. And a Generation Z, a Gen Z is 97 to 2015.
wow.
So
So the
I suspect most people watching are probably Gen Z,
there's
I guess.
I'd say our audience has to skew more towards millennial, right? I mean that means
Maybe,
you're what? That means
maybe.
you're 24. You're between 24 and 40 right now, being a millennial. And if you're younger than that, then yeah, you're probably Gen Z. Vogon says no comment. Yeah, I mean Vogon's like 130, so I mean, but
Easily 130.
he's everything though because he's kind of like an immortal wizard. He's just never gonna die. He's never gonna like age past where he is now.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm distinctly 80s guys. Yeah, yeah.
distinctly. I'm on the cutoff. I'm 89, so I'm right there towards the tail end of the 80s.
Yeah, I'm 85, so right there in the middle of it, right smack bang in the middle of the 80s.
Oh, you're
I
4 years
actually
older than me.
remember,
I
yeah,
thought
I
you were
actually remember
only like
living
2
in the
years older than me.
80s.
I
No, I'm
obviously being
36
a
now.
baby in the 80s, I remember none of it. So
I have some very, very early memories of what the time when it was the 80s. Like, clearly I don't remember it being the 80s, but I remember specific memories that would have
yeah,
been within there. Like, I remember my third birthday, which would be, uh, yeah,
Vogon says
a long time ago now.
73. Vogon was born in 73. So
Wow.
Vogon's approaching 50. What is he? 48 then? Is that what that is?
We
That's
between I
still
36,
that's
yeah,
still young.
yeah, he's almost 50.
That year's
That's
young.
on the good side of 50.
Have you ever
Yeah.
actually seen Vogon?
Yeah, I've met
Because
Vogan in real life a couple of times. Yeah.
Vogon does not look that old. I mean, he kind of has like the gray beard thing going on, but like it's like a very distinguished like gentleman kind of look.
The last time I saw Vogon would have been in January 2020, I think. We both went to a meetup that was in Bristol, I think. Vogon, I think you were there, right? I think. I don't know. That's a long time ago now.
Yakbat says, "Heyo, I just wanted to stop by and say hi, and I love you guys. My lunch break is almost over, so I can't stay. Thank you so much for coming in to say hi. We love you too. Love all you guys in chat. Bummer you're on your lunch break and you can't watch live, but the schedules they're a thing, unfortunately, and not
For
everyone can
sure.
always watch, which is why most people watch the VOD, which is understandable." All right, so obviously we have officially pinged the server now, so we could probably get started here pretty soon.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
After now that we hate Me6, I am boycotting the Me6 bot. We're finding something else.
We're gonna write our
I
own bot, Brian. That's what we're gonna do.
I
We're gonna write our own.
I think between us, do we have even an ounce of coding knowledge or experience?
Yeah, I've got a little bit. I could definitely give it a stab, I think.
All right. Well, do you have?
Yeah.
Okay. We're good. I certainly don't. You are like super ultra multi talented, and I
No,
sit
that's not
here and
true.
I drink lemon spindrift. Please sponsor me.
I'd have a dabble. I think I could get it going if I had a dabble. Like I'm good at turning my mind to new things, but I'd never be an expert at it. But I'd probably be able to get it to work. I reckon I could figure out enough to get it to work. Like yeah, I think I could.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I think you're just flat out cooler than me, so I'm gonna go with that. But
Physically, yeah, because you've got a heat
well,
wave and I don't. So yeah, physically.
that's true. Well, it's not really like heat wave. It is pretty warm today. Let's start the show, shall we? Let's start this. Let's talk keyboard things for today. It'll be fun, I promise. Rolling the intro. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Top Clack. I'm Quakems. That's Jay. And we're two keyboard boomers that we can say that now, right? Can we just establish ourselves as keyboard boomers? Can we just embrace,
You
accept,
say that?
and I don't know. I feel like we've joked about it, but now I kind of just want to like establish. I'm okay. I've made my peace with it, right? I can be a keyboard boomer, and that's okay.
I think I'm comfortable with that. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with it.
I'm not. It's not a bad thing, right? I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. It does have negative connotations, but we can embrace. Yeah, like Vogon says, embrace the boominess. I think we're at that stage now. But anyways, welcome everyone to this episode. We have hopefully a pretty good episode in store for you today. A couple of weeks ago, we had a really great episode talking about GMK delays and kind of the current state of GMK in our hobby right now. It went over really well. Highly suggest you go back and check out that VOD. Last week, we did not have an episode on Friday because my roommates were getting married, and it was the day before their wedding. I was trying to help out with a bunch of stuff. Went to the wedding the next day. It was a madhouse here. They had multiple people from the wedding party flying in and staying in the house, and it was like a bunch of prep was happening here on Friday, and it was so loud that if we did the stream, you guys wouldn't have been able to hear me because there was just so many people screaming all day long at this house on Friday. So we just decided not to do an episode last week.
Yep.
And that's just the way it is. So sorry about that, guys, but we're back this week. Things are going well, and yeah.
Really important question though. How was the wedding? How did the wedding go? That's the really important question.
The wedding went pretty well. It was pretty warm, and it was an outside wedding. There was some covered space, so I took refuge in the shade a lot of the times. But overall, the wedding was really well. It went really well, rather. The band was phenomenal. We had a great local band there. The groom's uncle did a lot of the cooking. He's a chef. We had a lot of it was a very kind of I don't want to say fully casual, but it was kind of a cross between formal and casual of a wedding. The food was a lot of homemade barbecue stuff. There was a lot of smoked brisket, pulled pork.
Ooh, that sounds good.
There was a bunch of different salads and stuff. It was really good. Yeah, I definitely had a good time. 10 out of 10 would do again. And my roommates,
nice.
my friends, they're awesome. They're amazing. Definitely wish them the best, and they're freaking perfect for each other. So they were practically married already, but now they're officially married, and that's super cool. So
that's really cool. That's really cool. Glad it was a good day.
Yeah, my camera keeps freezing, and I have no idea why. So hopefully that's not going to become a problem throughout this stream.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, I can't see any issues happening in OBS or anywhere else, but sometimes we gotta take the bad with the good. Anyways, today we're gonna be talking about some acoustic modifications for keyboards. More specifically, the kind of more popular and trendy tape mod that we've been seeing a lot, as well as the kind of slightly, I don't want to say more dated, but obviously, the foam has been around for quite a while. We've been seeing foam both under PCB and under plates for a little while now, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And we'll be talking a little bit about more of the soul of keyboards is something I kind of want to focus on as well, and kind of how these mods affect the keyboards overall. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be going with today. By the way, Jay, how are you doing? I forgot to ask. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Yeah, it's been a long, busy week, but I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm all right. Good.
I don't want to neglect you, Jay. I want to make sure you're feeling okay too. I mean, you were stripping for me before the stream, so.
Hey, you're not supposed to tell people that. That was private for you. That wasn't for anyone else.
Look, I'm just way too excited. It's still the only thing I can think about. So it's the first thing on my mind, and you really got me going, Jay. Tape mod is a terrible name. We already had a tape mod, did we? What was the previous?
Yeah, So it was the tape under the stabilizers, right? After Band-Aid mod, there was the tape mod, which was tape under
Oh, there was a.
stabilizers. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I remember the band-aids. I remember that. I very much remember that coming and going.
yeah,
As a trend, but I definitely don't remember the tape mod. We're gonna refer to this as the tape mod these days, like just because that's what people have been calling it these days. I am totally up for calling it something different. I am totally up for a name change. But for all intents and purposes, on today's episode, we're just gonna call it the tape mod. Just because it'll be easier that
well,
way.
yeah,
So let's talk a little bit about like just what it is physically first, right? So,
sure.
actually, even before this, I want to preface with a few notes. The first being sound has become monumental in our hobby. You see it every day. People are tuning keyboards and designing keyboards and doing modifications, specifically for the reasons of sound and acoustics, right?
Yeah,
That wasn't always the case. This is something that's been a lot more common the last few years. But
sure.
if you date back maybe closer to a decade, maybe we'll say 6 to 10 years, the feel of a keyboard was a lot more important than what a keyboard sounded like, right? Obviously, we had things like clicky switches and people like that, but we're talking specific. We'll call it high end acoustics, right? The kind of sound you want
Oh,
that you can get out of like really fancy higher end keyboards, right?
I'm gonna put one caveat on that, and
Okay.
that's gonna be RTD, because RTD used to do the same series of boards with, like the 360C and the 360N, whatever else. Then they were designed for different types of switches to sound different. So I
Yes.
think I think I
I'm
think there
not.
were some exceptions to the rule, but yeah, in general, I think you're
Yes.
right. Yeah, because if we don't mention that, someone will correct us.
I'm
That's all.
speaking like from the perspective of the community at large. Obviously, there
Sure.
are going to be outliers here. Obviously, some people cared about sound and have for decades or whatever, ever since the inception of the keyboard hobby as we know it. That's of course that's true. You're not wrong at all. But I would say, as the community grew, we started caring about sound more and more. I feel like, as a general average consumer, sound used to not be nearly as important as it is now. Still used to take the kind of the headforce dive into what made keyboards good, is you wanted it to feel good. And now we have so many more mods and things that we do specifically for the sake of sound that we didn't used to do. So I think it's
Sure.
definitely safe to say that sound as a whole is more important now than it ever has been in the community. And
100% agree with that. Yeah.
and I do also want to preface this by saying this is a discussion, right? I don't want to feel like we're taking sides, both myself, Jay, or just talk like as a whole. We're not trying to take sides. This is, as usual when you do discussions, this is kind of just promote brainstorming, promote thoughts, get you guys thinking about these kind of things and interacting with us in these kind of conversations and discussions as well. So I'm not trying to take sides. I don't want to come off like I'm saying this is bad or this is good. This is more just let's talk about it today.
Yeah, and if you have a differing opinion, tell us and we'll talk about it. If you disagree with something that we say, or disagree, or feel like we haven't explored something quite so well, then tell us and we'll take it further, or we'll tell you why you're wrong. Um,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I also want to say that, with that aside, it's awesome that people are doing things like this, right? And I was telling Jay before the stream as
100%.
well,
Yeah.
like whether these kind of like DIY mods work out or they don't, it's cool that people are trying things because you never really know what you can achieve unless you try it, right?
Yeah,
It,
because
it
this is one of the things as well. It's I'm really keen to talk about this and to talk about new things, but we have seen some fads in the hobby that have come and gone. Like we talked about the Band-Aid mod earlier on. There was a time when every single stabilizer would have a Band-Aid underneath it. Now it's very, very rare. There was also a time prior to that where people used to cut tiny bits of foam and put them inside stabilizers to stop rattle. Nobody does that now, and a lot of people that are in the hobby have never even heard of it. So, there are things that have changed. I'm interested to see when we talk about this as well, whether we feel that this is one of those or whether it's something more permanent, like switch lubrication, that has been a mainstay of the hobby for a long time.
Yeah, which is kind of why I don't know if you noticed, but I ended our doc with some kind of general questions about this, just to kind of see like the community
Yeah,
feel and where we're heading with this kind of thing. Because it is cool to see these mods, and I think historically not all of them work out, as you've seen a lot of them fall out of fashion, like you were saying. But some of them do tend to work out fairly well, and some people do kind of like them. I mean, we've seen foam around for quite a while now, for better or worse. Sorbethane enjoyed quite a bit of time in the sun and is still used by some people, although it is a little bit more expensive, I guess you might add. But
Hmm.
yeah. So, anyways, sound, just like feel, can be highly preferential, right? Not everyone appreciates the exact same acoustics in their keyboard, just like not everyone appreciates the exact same feel in their keyboard. Which is why I tend to take a step back and say that not these aren't necessarily like good or bad things. They're just things that you might like or dislike, right? Not everyone likes foam. Not everyone likes certain lubes or whatever. Like, you pick a mod, not everyone's gonna love it, right? It's not universal. Um, but regardless, the tape mod is sweeping the community right now, right? It's super popular. A lot of
Yeah.
streamers, a lot of builders are doing it right now. I had my first experience with it on Monday when I built my Kara, which I'm showing off here. We played around with multiple configurations in this keyboard, and we did wind up settling on some tape. I'll be totally honest with you guys. So this is kind of a new thing for me, so I don't want to speak as if I know everything about this, because the reality is I do not, and I would bet that Jay probably doesn't either. So this is kind of something that we're kind of taking as we come. I do plan to do a stream in the near future where I use multiple tapes across multiple boards, and we kind of figure out what works best and maybe what works the least.
Oh, that would be
Um,
cool. So, do you
yeah.
want to, just for anyone who's not seen this, do you want to describe exactly what the tape mod is? Just make sure it's really clear.
Yeah, I totally forgot to do that. So you're right. So basically, the tape mod is about as simple as it sounds. You're effectively taking strips of tape that you'll hopefully cut to a proper size and sticking them on the back of your PCB. So you straight up tape the back of your PCB. It's as simple as that. So it's incredibly inexpensive, right? Because tape is not very expensive. It's incredibly easy to do. It only takes a minute or two to throw some tape on the back of your PCB, and if you don't like it, you can pull it right off, because tape generally comes off. I will preface
Not,
this by saying not all tapes are created equal, and obviously
okay.
with this modification in mind, I think people do tend to veer towards certain tapes. I've been seeing
Okay.
masking tape used quite a bit, which is what I used in my Kara. I think there are some pros and cons to tape as well, because not only from a mod perspective, but from a perspective of like which tapes you use, which I think people are kind of still up in the air on. I don't think anyone's really settled on a lot, because if you think about it, things like masking tape, painter's tape, and maybe like even packaging tape and some others, they're not meant to last forever, right? Like, it's not something you put on that stays there forever.
Sure.
And even my masking tape right here, the one that I used, I have the roll. It says, the adhesive basically starts to like fail after a couple weeks, right? It's not
Yeah.
supposed to be on there for forever. That's not the whole point of a lot of these tapes. They're there for masking, right? But then you on the other side, you have things that are like a little bit more. I don't want to say permanent, but a little bit more, in terms of longevity. Things like duct tape, some of
Yeah.
the more like heavy adhesive tapes, which I wouldn't
And you can go as far
necessarily.
as Caft tape, which is, the water, it needs to be run through water to be able to make it activated. There's all sorts of really strong tapes that we could look at as well. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And nerdy in chat points out electrical tape as well, and gaffer's tape. Um, yeah, so I mean, people are having different results with different tapes. Unsurprisingly, I would never really suggest using something highly adhesive on a PCB, because it's gonna leave residue, and in worst case scenario, it might pull off some of your SMD components as well if the adhesive is strong enough. Which is why I
Sure.
think people are leaning a lot more towards things like masking tape or gaffer's tape, because they have a very mild adhesive, right? It's very easy to just pull them back off, because that's what they're designed for. Um,
Sure. Yeah, I wonder. I wonder if we should try stuff like Captain tape as well, because that's used in quite a lot of electronics, and it's designed to stay adhered to them. So that could be kind of interesting. And another one that I'm really interested to try would be something that's like a rough sort of tape, like skateboard tape. The tape that you put on top of a
ooh,
skateboard. That could be interesting.
yeah, I mean, the reality is there's like seemingly infinite styles of tape, And
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
them might work for us, and a lot of them might really not. And I think at this point we're kind of people are just trying things, and hopefully it's working, which tends to be how the mods kind of come and go, anyways. Um, yeah, so I mean, the idea in a Meyer in chat is asking, what does taping your PCB do? I'm guessing damping sound or something. Yeah, so basically, the idea is to alter sound, right? And I am not an expert on sound science. I'm just not. So I'm not going to pretend I know like the exact details or the exact reasons why it changes it, or why we want to change it even. But the idea is that you put the tape on the back of your PCB, and it tends to kind of clean up a lot of any metallic sounds that you might have. It also cleans up some hollowness if you have any kind of hollowness in your keyboard, and it seems to kind of tighten and focus up the sound. And I almost want to say like kind of reflect it back in a more like focused way. Um, that being said, again, I'm not an expert on sound. I have no idea if that's how it's working, but yeah, the idea is it gives you a deeper tone. It gives you a bit of a thockier tone. It gives you a little bit more of an airier tone, which I find a lot more in foam versus tape, but tape still kind of has that as well. And yeah, so one of the things we kind of want to talk about this is just kind of the results it has on your board, not just physically, but like
sure.
the kind of man, this is gonna sound so nerdy and down the rabbit hole, but like the spiritual effects it has on your keyboard, right? Because a lot of these designers, they put a lot of resources into their designing, right? A lot of
Yeah,
time, a lot of
100%.
a lot of effort, and a lot of it is for the sake of acoustic reasons. I'm not going to say all designers design for sound, but a lot of designers lately, at least, have been designing with sound in mind, which is interesting to me because foam and now tape is becoming more prominent as well. And to me, in my eyes at least, these kind of mods tend to remove characteristics from the board that otherwise would be there and might be more indicative of that keyboard, right? It's something more distinct. Um, but when you start to use foam in particular, obviously I'm newer to tape, so I don't want to make too many of these comments about the tape, but foam in particular, if you've used one fully foamed board in the sense of you have foam under the plate as well as under the PCB, they all more or less sound the same, right? You can alter things like switches and plate material, but the foam really does neutralize the kind of playing field, and it
Yeah.
makes all the sounds feel a little bit more non-distinct. It starts to matter less about what board you're using, what configuration you're using. It starts to matter more that you're using foam, right?
Yeah,
Um,
for me, foam always felt like a crutch. It was like a way of making a bad build be passable. That's how I always felt about it. I don't know if you'd agree with that, Clack.
I completely agree, and I feel like the community is a little split on this, but I don't think that's at all an unpopular opinion. I feel like there are definitely quite a few people, and I'm sure some of them are even in chat here, that kind of take the view of, if you have to foam a board, it might not be a very good board. At least in terms of sound, for this example.
Sure.
But and man, I feel like that can be a little harsh sometimes, but at the same time, it's sort of true in a way as well. And I have several boards that have foam in them. I've owned and built and used several boards that have foam in them, and they really do all start to kind of sound and feel the same. It's a very specific kind of sound, and I think that the other side of the argument is that if you have a board that maybe doesn't sound or feel as great as you want, the foam might be able to help elevate it a little bit up to kind of more of a medium level. Whereas I think if you maybe start to foam a lot of like the nicer high end boards, it brings it down to that same level.
Mm,
And so you kind of
yeah.
have that like neutral playing field of like you have boards towards the bottom that might not feel and sound very great. You have boards at the top that feel and sound really great. And if you're using foam, the boards kind of start to meet in the middle, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, I would not disagree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of I'll call it the soul of the keyboard, which I realize again sounds ultra nerdy. But hey, you're watching two guys talk about mechanical keyboards, so you're here. What more could I say? So when there's a designer designing a keyboard, I feel like there's a lot of soul being put into it from from a lot of the designers' perspectives, right? They put in so much effort and time into these. It's like a piece of themselves. It's an extension of them, and to some extent, it represents them, right? And of course, they want a good product, right? They want to get out a keyboard that looks great, feels great, sounds great. When you type on it, you're just like, wow, right? Like that's like the end goal of pretty much all keyboard designers, I can imagine, not being one myself. And then I worry about foam in that instance because are you like you're really starting to change the way the keyboard performs, and it's not necessarily the way it's intended. But on the flip side of
Mm.
that, you have boards that ship with foam, and that are considered nicer boards, but they're shipped with foam, such as the Polaris and the Vega, which I realize are kind of they're not super highly expensive boards, so like you can kind of make a case for them here or there. The Box 75, I think, is a good example, and I want to bring this up because I did talk to the designer about the Box 75 before I built it. He wanted to make sure I had all the information I needed and how to like take it apart and stuff. And I had some questions for him because it's kind of an interesting board. And if you guys don't remember, the Box 75 ran on novel keys. It was relatively expensive. It was like 550, I think, for the starting kit.
Yep.
And a lot of, and to be fair, a lot of that price did come from the accent pieces, which were very very nice. It had a lot of hand polished PVD stainless steel accents, and that was kind of the defining feature, if you will, of that keyboard. But I was talking to you about that board because it does ship with two layers of foam, one for under the PCB and one for under the plate. And I was like, hey, is the foam like part of the design? Is like that part of the intentional sound profile? Or like maybe is it like could it have been designed differently or yada yada yada? And he was just kind of like he was almost very taken aback by it, and like he wasn't really like sure what I was asking. And I was like, well, the foam, right? Like usually you put in foam in a keyboard that maybe you don't like the sound as much, or you're trying to go for a specific sound, like that's what you want. I'm like, hey, is foam part of the design? Like, do I have to use this? Am I not going to get the Box 75 full experience if I don't use the foam? Because given the chance, I'm probably not going to use foam like 100% of the time.
Yeah.
I would just rather not use it. But some other builders had built the Box 75 and they're like, yeah, it doesn't really sound always that great without the foam. Because the reality is that board, which is a $550 class board, has like zero acoustic design, right? It's literally like a box. Like all the design of that keyboard is the accent, which also acts as the foot system. Otherwise, it's just a rectangle that's top mount. It has like no curvature, no like acoustic chambers, no design for sound whatsoever, which is totally fine. He's an early designer, and he knew exactly what he wanted, which was that particular aesthetic. The accents are like the centerpiece of that. But it's always been interesting to me because like I couldn't get the answer of like, do I build this with foam because it's part of the Box 75 experience, or do I leave it out because that's probably what I would like and prefer.
Mm.
Ultimately, I did wind up building it with foam on his request. So unsurprisingly, it sounded like every other foam board I've ever tried, and it's like, well, like that. If I'm paying that much for a board, I don't want it to sound like $150 board that I've also foamed. And that's the thing, right? Like if you're spending buku dollars, $400, $500, $600 on a keyboard, do you want the same exact sound that you can get out of a $100 or $200 keyboard that you've also installed a bunch of foam in? I'm not so
I
sure I
mean,
do.
for you and I, probably not. But I think that there are some areas of the community where that is absolutely what they want. They want that soft and dampened sound that you get with foam, and they're buying more expensive cases for aesthetics, which is a completely fine and valid way to buy things in this hobby. We're not trying to be elitist or say that that's a bad way of buying things. But I think there are people who prefer. It depends on what your preference is, right? Do you prefer aesthetics or do you prefer sound? What are you buying the keyboard for? And what becomes a higher priority for you in search of the perfect keyboard? I think for both you and I, Brian, we'd both probably pick sound over aesthetics first. The sound has to be
Yes,
good, and
absolutely.
then it has to look good afterwards, right?
Yeah. and Nerdy in chat says, now what if, and hear me out, it's just preference. And yes, which is why I spoke for like 5 minutes prefacing this, saying that this is all preference, but so is almost all of the hobby, and you're still here watching this show. So, obviously something's going on. But, it's totally fine. And I do have an example in our doc here. I say that, I feel like foaming boards is very similar to kind of how a lot of people just kind of put a bunch of like 205 grade 0 on a linear, right? If you put enough lube on a switch, or you lube a switch, highly enough, it's going to feel like other similar switches, right? If you have
Sure.
10 different linear switches and you just put a bunch of 205 grade 0 on all of them, you might not be able to tell which one is which. And I feel like the same is true when you foam keyboards, right? If you have 10 different keyboards that are ranging from $200 to $600, and you have plate foam and case foam in all of them, you might not always be able to tell which one is which in a blind test. And I think that's very unfortunate for a lot of the boards in the hobby, especially some of the nicer ones, which require so much effort to kind of design. So that's kind of how I've been feeling about it. And so I'm a little torn these days on the tape mod, because obviously I did do it, and I'll be honest, I really do like the way this keyboard sounds. I feel like tape, at least right now in this particular configuration that I've used it in, is superior to any foam that I've tried. I will say that.
Interesting. Okay.
But
Okay.
I still worry, Jay. I still worry that this is going to take the same trend as foam and just be used across like everything, because it just quote unquote makes boards better.
Well, that
Better
was going to
being
be
in
my question
quotations.
to you, because I haven't tried this yet. I'm going to do it on a stream at some point soon and try it. But you have tried it, so my question to you was, before the show, did it improve the particular board that you built in the car that you held up a second ago? And you were really hesitant to answer it. And when you did answer it, you said it did, but you had a worry, you wondered if it would always make the boards sound better. I think you correct me if I'm wrong here, but where you were going with that was that it will always change the sound of a board, but will it always change it in a positive way?
Exactly, which is why I tried to put quotations around the word better, because obviously it is preference, and one person might like something more than the other. But again, on the build stream, and the VOD's up, guys, if anyone wants to go back and watch it, we tried the board with and without tape, with and without weights, and with some lubed Okamochi switches. And, and I will say, without the weight and without the tape, the board had a lot of distinct character. I'm not going to say it was an amazing sounding board or fantastic. I think, being a injection molded plastic board at a relatively low price point for a custom keyboard, sound is not the first thing in mind for this design, I feel like. Although they do have the kind of mute mount system. Obviously, Rama doesn't overlook things like that. But, for all intents and purposes, the Kara, at least in the Sequence 1, was kind of known as a board that didn't necessarily sound that great. But it was also $160 for a base kit. It's not one of these $500 keyboards, right? So you can kind of give it a little bit of leeway, I feel like. With that said, the board did have a lot of distinctive character without any kind of acoustic modifications. When I added the tape, the sound changed noticeably. I'll say considerably, even.
Okay.
And, a lot of those characteristics were removed. And while the sound does sound a little bit more focused, a little bit cleaner, and a little bit kind of deeper, thockier, poppier, whatever terminology in the community you want to use, but the reality is like, this doesn't necessarily have to be a Kara anymore, right? Because I've made a change that is so impactful on the sound, it could be another board. And while the sound I have been appreciating, I do think it's been pretty nice. It's been a very kind of lively, poppy sound, which I appreciate. I think it turned out well in here. I think this board is probably one of the better candidates for something like a tape mod. But, with that said, I don't think it necessarily is going to perform as admirably in other scenarios. And, you do have to wonder, is it worth removing a lot of the characteristics, even if they're not always favorable, from a board with a modification like this, changing it to something that's a more neutral level playing field with other boards now. And I think that's the worry that I have kind of moving forward into the future, right? Are we going to start seeing more people design with acoustics in mind, so people don't have to do things like tape and foam to get the favorable sound they want? Or are we going to see more of these modifications like we have been, and we're going to start seeing people start to take less expensive, more DIY focused methods into making boards sound a specific way versus what the keyboard naturally is?
Sure. Yeah, I think that's really interesting because more and more I see that keyboards are being designed with sound in mind. Like we are seeing more and more designers develop boards with acoustic cavities, with changes in pitch and tone taken into consideration by curving the insides of the base of the case, by changing the depth of the case depending on whether it's underneath alphas or modifiers or whatever else. We're seeing a lot of different people try a lot of different things in that space right now. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the people still feel that those particular boards need modification like this, whether tape improves those boards or unimproves those boards, makes them worse. How is that going to pan out? It's going to be really interesting to see, and I think there's a lot more experimentation needed to be done with tapes. There's so many
Yes.
different types of tape out there. Is just one tape going to be good enough for any particular keyboard, and is it always going to improve the sound, or are you going to have to try 3 or 4 different types of tape, and sometimes it's going to make the board sound better, sometimes it's going to make the board sound worse, and what's the future of this mod? I think how it pans out in the next couple of weeks, months, years is going to be really interesting to see, because I don't think there's going to be one solution that's going to be the answer to every keyboard woe in terms of sound quality. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really interested to see how it's going to change.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to try it as well because I'm curious if you're going to have similar or even like super contrasting opinions to what I have. Uh,
Yeah,
I feel like you obviously you'll take an unbiased, open-minded approach to it, which I very much appreciate because that's what I try to do as well. So yeah, definitely curious to get your thoughts on that. Maybe we'll have to do a bit of a follow up as well.
a recap. Yeah, I have about 15 different types of tape I can use here as well in the workshop, which is really good because I can just try 5 or 6 different things on a stream at any given time. So I'm probably going to have a go with a few different things and see how. I wonder if I can find a couple of boards that are the same and have one that's just completely stock, and then have one that we tried different tapes on and try them next to each other. That might be where I need to get
That's
to. I
yeah.
think I think I can probably do that.
That's
Yeah,
like the ideal outcome, right? When you actually have an experiment where you have the variables and the controls all laid out, and you know you have the reference and you have the new experiment. That's obviously
sure.
quite ideal. Quite ideal. Yeah. So I mean, the argument. Actually, before I move on here, I do want to say Striker in chat says didn't want to crash the stream, but I wanted to say thanks for the host a few days ago. Love your guys' work. Thank you so much. And yeah, we try to raid people every episode, new people even. So try to spread the love. So thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate it. Nerdy says I can't wait to tape mod my JO2 Keck. Yeah, and I mean, and actually, let me just pick your brain for a second, Jay. As someone that has done some design work on a keyboard, obviously you have multiple keyboards under your name, your brand now. In boards like the JO1 and the JO2, they have design elements about them that are
Yeah,
for acoustic reasons. So as a designer of high-end boards like the JO1 and the JO2 that have acoustic design to them, what do you think the tape mod is kind of looking like here? If someone all of a sudden was like, "Oh man, I need to start taping my JO2 and JO1," how would that make you feel as like the designer of the board, someone that put in effort to kind of tweak?
I I'd like to think that they tried the board without the tape first of all, because I hate to call myself a designer because I don't think I am or anything like that. But the idea behind the design on the JO2 and the JO1 was that the sound would be consistent across the board and it would give enough room for the sound to develop inside there. A little bit like a guitar has open space inside it. The kind of thinking was the same. We used some mathematical formulas to work out how deep the cavity needed, the acoustic cavity needed to be. Um, I, I did that because I didn't like the trend that was happening 2 or 3 years ago when all of these foams were starting to come out and people were trying different foams and people were cutting sorbethane and there was a
Yep.
thing about sorbethane had to be cut in circles because it worked better if you cut it into circles and not rectangles and all of this kind of stuff. And I just didn't like that. And I thought, why doesn't my keyboard sound good from the offset? So that was where the design features came in for the JO1 and then the JO2. Um, so I'd like to think that people would try the board without any modification first, And then if they felt like they didn't like the sound out, they would then try it with tape or not. And if they like it with tape, then great, fine, they're happy. That I'm not going to judge on someone's personal subjective opinion, but I'd like to think that they try both with and without if they're going to try the tape mod. I think they'd like to try them without first, and then add the tape later on if they think that that might improve it. And tell me, just be honest with me. Say I think that this improved the board, or I think it didn't improve the board. Whatever their thoughts are on it.
Yeah, and here's something I actually didn't even think of until just now. But one thing that's actually kind of interesting is, a lot of these designs in the nicer keyboards, and I'm sure I can even use the JO2 and JO1 as example here. It costs extra money for these design features for acoustics, right? Because it's more machine time. You have to cut out these chambers. Things like tape and foam, those are cheap, right? Those are really cheap and pretty easy and accessible additions to a
Yeah.
keyboard, right? It's
Like
not.
the,
It's,
the
it's not
cost of
like
milling one acoustic cavity is probably the same as buying enough tape for everyone in the group buy, right?
exactly right.
Yeah.
So there's also a cost perspective from this as well, right? Like why would people have to charge 20 or 30 or maybe 50 or even $100 more for a keyboard unit that they've added physical acoustic changes to, when they can just be like, okay, well, maybe I like the sound of foam, so let me just slap in $5 of foam or tape and call it a day. And then all of a sudden the keyboard's way cheaper because you don't need to do all that extra machine work or design work even, to get it, and maybe even prototype. Maybe you have to run fewer prototypes because you don't even have to worry about that. You just slap in some tape. You say, hey, the board is intended for some foam or some tape, and all of a sudden it's just it's faster, easier, more accessible, and cheaper for a lot of people as well.
Yeah, maybe. I do think that people should try these modifications out and see whether
Yeah,
they like them, because I think they are going to be different for everyone. Some people are going to like the changes, and some people aren't going to like the changes, and that's going to vary from person to person, from board to board. I don't think there's any ever going to be any particular sound test of these which aren't very accurate in the first place that everyone
sure.
agrees is that has 100% made that board sound 10 times better. I think that kind of level of subjectivity is going to be difficult to equalize across every keyboard, but yeah, just try it out and see how it goes. And I think my big excitement on this isn't necessarily the fact that this mod has come to light. It's the fact that there are so many different types of tape that we can use,
Yes.
and it might help us design acoustics better if we understand what the tapes are doing and why they're doing it. Because effectively, what they're doing in my head is like when you're using microphones, right? You have like a filter in front of the microphone to reduce unwanted sounds, and then you have like gain that you can turn up to make sure that the background sounds are muted out as well. I feel like that's what foams always did. They were almost like adding a gain modifier to your keyboard to more or less equalize it. And I feel like tape mod might be just doing that a little bit. So I'm interested to try different types of tape and see where it goes to.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely looking forward to getting some of your thoughts on that. Because, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the tapes that the community's been using are not long term tapes, right? They're only meant to be used for a couple days or maybe a couple weeks before they start to maybe like fall off. And obviously, it's not that difficult to retape things, but it'd be interesting to find something. It'd be interesting to find like more specific tapes that'll work best for our community. Um, but again, like you mentioned, it'll probably take weeks, months before people kind of start to settle on things, as it usually does with these kind of. I don't want to
For
call it. I don't
sure.
want to call it trend because I have no idea if it's going away. But it does seem a little trendy, if I'm being honest. Um, Anyways, the kind of other argument against that is that a lot of people have told me like, hey, like calm down. Like tape and foam should only be used on boards that are very cheap or less expensive, aren't as design heavy, or that just don't naturally sound as good. And I
Sure.
feel like that's, if you're going to go about taping and foaming keyboards, that's probably the best way you can go about doing it, is like making sure you're trying the boards naturally first. And if you really just don't like it, if you don't like that particular board's character, then you can start to modify that and into something that's a little bit better for you. Kajata in chat says something that is very blatant, but I'm worried about as well. He says, in the grim future, nothing has any personality. And that's what I'm worried about too, right? Because almost every modification we do starts to take away from something, right? Lubing switches, gasket mounts, stabilizer. Like literally every piece of the keyboard we try to modify kind of reduces part of the like the essence of the board. And I mean, obviously, no one's really going to argue things like lubing switches, right? Because for the most part, lubing switches is just flat out better than stock switches. However, I will admit that I think some people take it a bit too far with the lube, and it winds up, you know, again, just being, it could be any switch, and I hate that. I hate having so many different options and having so many of them potentially be exactly the same based on a modification. And that's what I worry about for keyboards as well, in terms of things like foam and tape.
Yeah, I think I would share a lot of those concerns. But the great thing is it's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out and where people go to. Yeah, I'm interested. Technotic Clack says, should we now be expecting group buys of keybs with tape included?
I would bet.
I don't know.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, Jay. I'm gonna bet that will happen at some point.
Ooh, I think it will.
I think it will.
I think it will.
I think it will.
I don't think you're wrong. I think it will be after the community works out what the best tape is. And I say best, and I cringe using that, but what the consensus is on the best type of tape to use. Because I think we should try some other types, not just gaffer tape and painter's tape, but what about like anti-static tape, which is often used for PCBs? What about Captain tape, which is often used for PCBs? I think those are the ones that we should be looking at, those types of tapes, because A, they're more permanent, B, they're designed for PCBs, and C, let's just see how they compare.
Yeah. Morgan Carver says quite a few things in chat. I'm trying to catch up here. I know I haven't been. I've had a lot to say about this, and I'm actually kind of like passionate about this particular topic because like the soul of keyboards is something really important to me. I like when keyboards have individuality, when they have character, when they are distinct from each other. That's a really big deal to me because like that's why we're in this hobby, right? If every keyboard was the same, would we even be here? And, mods like foam and tape, while they can be good and they can be beneficial, I feel like take away very much from the kind of soul of boards. But anyway, Morgan Carver says, Bry Guy, are you worried about switch makers dropping design quality too, knowing people mod them? I use heavier lubes and use desk key films regardless of switch wobble because it gives the thockier sound I like. Well, I mean, look, if you find like the things that you like and you want to use them, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. But like you also have to realize that like what you're using isn't necessarily like the natural like essence of that product, right? Like if you're making all these changes to it, it's no longer the same product. And that's fine. You just have to make your peace with it. And sometimes I'm okay making my peace with that, and sometimes I'm like, no, like I paid $500 for this. I want this to be a specific way, and I want this to be different from everything else that I've used and owned. And that's just, that's going to vary from individual to individual, and that's totally fine. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is like all preference. There's not necessarily rights or wrongs here, or even goods or bads. It's just, what you like and our thoughts on this.
Yeah, and Nerdy says, what if, however, there is a particular sound that is so widely desired that it could be considered the best and let designers handle aesthetics and feel? I mean, and that's what we were saying about this kind of like this perceived consensus, like everyone can go back to the Holy Panda board that Tehe built on stream, and everyone uses that as an example of a great sounding keyboard, and everyone shares that link all over the place. But that's very subjective. Yeah, it's iconic, but it's subjective. It's not necessarily like I wouldn't want my keyboard to sound like that every day. I'd get a headache. Like I sometimes want a more muted sound. It depends on how I feel on any given day, right? That was a hell of a loud keyboard, right?
It's very assertive, yeah.
Yeah, assertive is a great way of putting it. So it really depends.
How many fiels? How many fiels do you think that video alone sold?
Thousands.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've seen the video multiple times. I don't personally like online typing tests because I feel like they're never indicative of real life sound, just because of one of dozens of variables. But with that said, obviously the video was good. People loved the way the board sounded. It's an iconic video in our community. It has, I think, millions of views even by this point, I'm sure. It might even be the most. Yeah. It might even be like the most viewed like keyboard enthusiast video like of all time. I'm not referring to things like Linus Tech Tips keyboard video, because that's like outside of the community. But yeah, I mean, obviously that's a pretty big deal. Morgan Carver, thank you so much for the 11 months. He says, "Long man." I did watch all those, by the way. Those are amazing.
The great, aren't they?
Big fan. Nerdy says, "Damn, my man, just went after gasket mount. Quakeums equals Keeb Karen." I am not a Keeb Karen. I like gasket mount. I have no problems with gasket mount. But like at the end of the day, right? You're adding material to reduce something that would otherwise be there on the keyboard. And with gasket mount, I don't really have a problem with gasket mount as much, because that's often like really integral to the actual design of the keyboard, whereas things like foam and tape aren't necessarily integral to the design of the keyboard. It's very much, it feels like an afterthought to me. You get a car or whatever, and you slap on like an exhaust or like an intake, but like you don't really change anything else, right? Like it'll change the way your car like performs maybe a little bit, or maybe it'll change the way it sounds a bit, but like it won't necessarily like do much else. Yeah.
You make me laugh because cars are my other hobby, and
Well,
I had a conversation with someone on a very similar point about this the other day, and they were like, "My exhaust sounds really good on this car right now." I was like, "Oh yeah, that's because you've got a hole in your exhaust when they started it up." And if you've ever had an exhaust that's blowing, where it means there's a hole in like one of the seals has gone and the exhaust gas is escaping where it shouldn't be, it makes the car sound like it's got a bigger or deeper engine than it has. Like it can make like a 3-pot engine sound like it's got like a 1 liter 3-pot engine. It can sound like a V8 because it's got like a hole in the exhaust. And they preferred the sound with the hole in the exhaust. I'm like, yeah, but it's illegal. You need to go and get that fixed. It's just interesting. It's just interesting comparison.
Oh man. Yeah. In before foam and tape are illegal in keyboards.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I missed her. I forgot who it was earlier, but someone in chat mentioned they were comparing this to the guitar hobby as well, like different woods for different sounds in guitars.
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean acoustics are going to be present and prevalent in a lot of hobbies, and ours is just one of many. You could argue that any music hobby is going to be more impactful with acoustics than keyboards, but one of the things I'm actually testing out right now is other changes. I don't know if I should talk about this or not. Should I? I'll tell it. I'll talk about it. Right. Okay. So one of the things I'm testing right now for some upcoming projects isn't about foam, but it's like when we've talked about the JO2 having the acoustic cavity on the inside. What I'm experimenting now is not with necessarily materials there, but the finish on the materials on the inside of the case. Does that change? So if we have a high polished Kepler style bottom on the inside of the case in just that slot, and just inside that acoustic cavity, and only in that area, and everywhere else is just standardization, how does that affect the sound? So that's something I'm actively investigating right now. And actively changing, because I think that there is more to it than just materials. There is also some other things that we can do. Like if I make that surface really rough, what does that do? If I make it really shiny and polished, what does that do? If I have it just standard anodized, what does that do? So that's something that I'm really into trying at the moment. Yeah, and we've seen not the same, but we've seen like kind of similar things in the past as well, with things like the Honeyboard 60, for example. Honestly, a pretty generic sandwich mount 60 with a universal plate, but it has that honeycomb cutout in the bottom that kind of scales with the angle as well. That changes sound a lot in that keyboard. That keyboard actually sounds crazy deep and crazy precise, considering it's just a no gasket sandwich mount with a universal plate, which normally would just leak sound like crazy in that kind of format. So that was always kind of interesting to me. And then we've also seen it on things like, at least from the material perspective, on things like the Heine TKL. A lot of people don't realize that board actually has a 2-weight system. So on the bottom, it's a stainless steel weight for aesthetics. Inside, it's a brass weight for acoustics. And it straight up, Heine was like, yeah, I think it sounds better with the brass inside, so that's why I'm doing it. Cool. More power to you. And I love seeing that kind of thing. So I love seeing people take those kind of routes versus like, let's just add foam, right? Or like, let's just add tape, which is obviously going to be the newer thing. Not that it's bad, but, maybe there
There
are.
are some other aspects to this that, as well, that really intrigue me, and you've just given me a thought. Right? Why does the tape have to be applied to the PCB? Why not apply it to the bottom of the inside of the case? Does that make a difference? What does that do to the board?
Yeah, what if you do both, right? And I have seen people do tape on like the inside of the bottom of their case versus the PCB.
Okay,
I
yeah, I
think
haven't
it.
seen that yet.
I haven't tried it, so I don't know. I think I've heard some people say it's kind of comparable. So I keep punching my mic. I'm sorry, guys. So I'm not really sure. I still need to try that as well. But you're right. Like, right? If you're adding material, you can almost add any material to any spot, right? Like
Sure, right?
you can tape whatever the hell you want. You can foam whatever the hell you want. I think, is it KBD fans right now that even has like, they have like these switch dampeners that go under your switch but above your PCB, so it goes between the switch
Yeah.
and the PCB. That could be kind of interesting as well, I suppose. I haven't tried them yet.
Do you know what's really interesting about that particular mod? That was actually really common in some old Hall effect switches. You used to have Hall effect switches that actually sat on a block of rubber, and these are the
Oh,
old switches that were like an inch and a half tall. They actually used to sit on a block of rubber before they were connected to the case. So this is going back to switches that were made, 60, 70 years ago. It's really interesting.
yeah. Definitely. So, as we kind of wrap this topic up, I do want to kind of pose some questions. Not only to Twitch chat, but definitely to Twitch chat, but also to ourselves, Jay, you and myself. And starting that is the tape mod going to reign supreme? Are we going to keep seeing this kind of scale up and evolve? And is this going to become kind of, I don't want to necessarily say the new foam, because I don't necessarily think foam is going anywhere anytime soon either, but like, is this going to be like the new hype foam alternative, or is this going to die out pretty quickly?
I think this is going to be around for a little while. I think the nature of the hobby right now is that there are many people that try things that come up with many different implementations of it that it's going to be around a while. This isn't going to be like that old school, I've got some stabilizers that I want to tune. I'm going to cut up some dishwashing sponge and shove it in the back of the stabilizer, which happened in this community, guys. If you weren't around for that, this was a real thing. People used to put bits of sponge inside the stabilizers to stop them rattling, and that died out pretty quickly. Like that died out really quickly. I think it was like 6 months from beginning to end, and then no one ever did that again. I think this is going to be around a bit longer. I think we'll still have people doing tape mod in 12, 18 months, 2 years time at the very least. I think it will hit group buys at some point. I think when you said this earlier on, Brian, it made me think. I think there will be some vendor or some designer at some point that ships their board with some type of tape for it to be applied to the base of the PCB.
Yeah,
I think it will
I don't.
happen.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it's a very
No,
interesting thing, and you're right. It's probably inevitable. It'll be interesting to see what the first board kind of is here. So, what do you guys think? Is the tape mod just a trend? Is this going to die out soon? Is this going to last for a long time? Is this going to evolve and kind of scale up? I mean, it seems like a pretty simple and easy mod, which is kind of
yeah.
interesting.
And I think the other flip side to this is it going to make every board better? I know we talked about this earlier on, but I can't see
No.
any mod necessarily being something that is going to make every single board it's tried on better. Like, I think there's going to be some element of some boards where you try this and it actually makes the board sound worse. Maybe it is that old, Clipper with Holy Pandas and Nathan typing away in it. Maybe if you put foam in that board, it wouldn't sound as good. Would that be, if that had been, sorry, tape inside that board? If that board had tape in, would that video be as popular right now? Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But I
That's a good
think
question.
there must be some boards that it doesn't improve on. I think it will always make a change just
There's
because of the nature of the mod, but whether it's
Yeah.
always a positive one, I don't know.
I mean, there's no such thing as like a universally good mod, right? Except for like you could argue like lubing stabilizers, maybe, because I
Sure.
mean, what faster and more dominant way to ruin a board than with crappy, rattly stabilizers, right? Like that just ruins a keyboard basically. Um, I feel like so that's pretty universally accepted, but everything else, no, it's really pretty highly preference.
The solution to that is, Brian, is to just use less stabilizers. Let's all use 40% with no
We'll just
keys
use
bigger than.
we'll all switch to the 4x12 ortholinear grid. We'll just
Yeah,
everyone
or
we'll plonk
or
it
Hyper
up,
7,
or
or just go Hyper 7 because there's no stabilizers in a Hyper 7. If you build it in the old point of sale style switches
Yeah,
layout.
you just
Yeah.
need $12,000 in switches and keycaps.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that, yeah.
Morgan Carver says, I wish people would start trying new material besides foam. Like, you could imagine a two-weight system that bottom half was brass, but on the inside it's set up with a patterned leather upholstery piece. A really thin piece, but just enough to mess with the sound. Leather would be interesting. I've seen leather, I think, once or twice in keyboards before, but never for acoustic purposes. So that'd be kind of cool. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different things you could do with that. 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's see what a couple other people think here. Nerdy says, I think with this mod, though, essentially acting as a low-pass filter and making boards sound more thocky, it'll stick around. Yeah, that's the thing, right? I think the community in terms of acoustics tends to skew more towards, like, a deeper, thockier sound preference versus
Yeah.
something maybe a little bit more higher-pitched or, like, tinny or whatever you want to call it. Whatever more positive word for that is. Clacky, I guess we've historically used. But yeah, you're totally right, right? I mean, thock has become synonymous with good sound in our community. And I think taping boards, and to some extent foaming boards as well, gives you a thockier sound, albeit at a trade-off, if you ask me. But yeah, it's easy to see why both foam and tape is really kind of shooting up in popularity. Definitely not surprising. Techno says, with all the tape options that exist, maybe this will go on for a long while. Okay, so maybe we'll be experimenting with a lot of tapes for quite a while. I mean, there are a lot of tapes out there, and I think, some of them maybe not quite suitable for keyboard use, obviously, but we probably do have quite a few options. It'll be nice to hopefully settle on one that actually has a little longevity too, because obviously a lot
Yeah.
of the more mild adhesive tapes, like masking tape and such, don't really adhere super well for super long. So that'll certainly be interesting.
I think what I'm going to do when I test it is I'm going to build two keyboards that are identical with the same switches, and I probably won't lube them just to make sure it's 100% the same. So stock switches, two keyboards, same plate material, same PCB, same case. Might be slightly different colors, but I don't think color would affect it. I don't think anodization color would affect it.
You would hope not. You would hope
Not
not.
to any
Yeah.
not to any noticeable degree. Although there might be something in that actually, because sound waves and light waves reflect different. Anyway, there might be something in that, but I don't think so. But yeah, build two boards almost identical, as close to identical as I can get them. And then what I'll do is I'll try 5 or 6 different tapes on one board against a control board with no tape. And then what we'll do is we'll pick the two best sounding tape mods, and then we'll have one board with each tape mod on, and we'll try that. And I think that's what I'll do, and just see how that works. Because it'll be
That's
really interesting to see. Be really interesting to see.
that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Sturek says, I'm late to the stream, unfortunately, but have people mentioned polyfill already? I was very impressed when I first used it the other day. I haven't used polyfill yet. Is that something you've played around with yet, Jay?
Yeah, it's like a fibrous material. Upas actually sent me some with my original Brutal 60, which must have been a couple of years ago now. I didn't like it mainly because it was really faffy to get it into the board. But I have tried it. I didn't particularly rate it. To me, it felt like just putting foam in there. It didn't really sound much different to putting foam in. I wasn't a fan of it on that particular board. So yeah, I didn't really like it. But yeah, it's really a fibrous material. It's almost like it's like jumbled up cotton. I can't think. It's like cotton wool almost. It's that kind of thing.
Sure.
It's really fibrous, and you can pull it apart, and you have to really pack it in and make sure it's not poking out at the seams and stuff like that. Or you have to tape it down inside or something like that. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I have to be honest.
Yeah.
But it did affect the sound. It did affect the sound.
Yeah, certainly. Meyer says, Plonk crew represent. Yep, everyone's switching to ortholinear. No stabilizers, just get them out of here.
Yeah.
Jay Hambone says vacuum chamber 65. I'm waiting for the black hole 60. That's what I'm waiting for. Give me the black hole acoustics.
Hooks you in, yeah.
Sturek says, I want to try cork inside / as part of a keyboard. It's used for sound insulation and other things. Would be very interesting how it fares in a keyboard. I actually have a cork bottom laser cut for my HHKB. It'd be interesting to see how it does perform like inside keyboards, though, right?
Yeah, it could be interesting. I can probably test that quite easily as well because I have cork
Maybe
and I have the laser cutter, so I can test that.
maybe cork, like, instead of foam between the plate PCB, do cork. How interesting would that be?
Interesting.
So like a
Yeah, you
cork
could
a
do.
middle layer, like a cork middle layer, or like a
Could
leather
be done.
middle layer. That could be interesting as well.
Hmm.
I look forward to seeing all that testing, says Techno. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of testing is going to be kind of needed from our community at large moving forward. But I mean, the reality is with the tape mod right now, a lot of the builders and streamers that have been using it seem to really have positive things to say about it. They seem to really like it. I am a little bit more torn on it. I'm a little bit more 50-50. I think there's definitely pros and cons, but I'm a little bit more hesitant to really find a lot of enjoyment out of it because I don't think it's not the direction I would like to see the community move. I think is kind of my overall issue. I would much rather see a lot of see the designers just make the effort to design around sound and prototype, and obviously that's not always possible for every designer, but you would hope that more boards are designed with sound in mind, being
Ooh,
like
very
so
nice.
dominantly popular in the hobby right now. Sound is just too important. You can't overlook it when designing a keyboard, in my opinion, even though I'm not a designer. um, yeah. So my next kind of question to Twitch chat as well as us is, now that tape is kind of starting to gain popularity, what will happen to foam? Is foam gonna fall out of fashion in place of tape, or will foam kind of continue to rise alongside of it? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Just while people are coming back with an answer to that, thank you very much to CyberSam for 34 months of subs as well. Thank you so much, man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Appreciate that. Visionaire says no way. Foam is still king. Really? Okay, so Visionaire, maybe a big fan of some foam. Okay, okay. And I guess I can kind of pose this question simultaneously: is will we see another alternative hit the market? And if so, what do you guys think it'll be? What if tape isn't it? What do you guys think is going to be the next foam alternative?
Oh, it's an interesting one because if you'd have asked this 6 months ago, no one would have said tape is going to be the next
No
phone
one would have said
alternative.
tape.
So
Zero people would have
yeah,
said tape.
I think coffee beans are going to be the next
Coffee
thing.
beans. Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not necessarily about aesthetics or acoustics anymore. It's now more about that olfactory kind of senescence experience when you're using your keyboard. And I think coffee grounds are going to be the thing.
I mean, I'm all for pleasure of the senses, Jay, but I, maybe we'll reach a point where smell will be a big part of keyboards.
You imagine?
I wonder. I wonder.
Imagine
Lunar.
tap 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 tap. That's definitely an A key. I can. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's an A. Tap 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 tap. Okay. That
That's
smells more like an M to me. Yeah. Okay, that's an M. Yeah. Can you
that's
imagine?
that keyboard is 100% Arabica. That's fantastic. Kajata says Play-Doh. Interesting. I don't know if you're being serious or not, but maybe that could actually work. Something similar to Play-Doh at least.
Maybe one of the other. Again, do I tell people this or not? I shouldn't because I'm testing out quite a few things. But
Oh
one of the other
please.
things I've been investigating is not Play-Doh, but resins. So in the JO2s we have the acoustic cavity, and I am testing filling that with different things like resins. So like melting resin or getting mixed resin, pouring it in, heat treating it so it sets in there nicely, and then testing that out. So that's stuff that I have that's been worked on at the minute. Um,
Yeah, I mean Jay doesn't want to talk about it, but he's constantly filling cavities with things
hey
for
now,
testing.
hey now,
Um,
shh, shh.
yeah,
Something in
uh,
terms of service.
I hey man, I skirted the lines. We're good. We're good. We're fine. We're fine. Lunar Sama says make Sorbothane great again. So maybe Lunar wants to see Sorbothane kind of make a comeback. Sorbothane, it did kind of come and go a little bit, I will say, but Sorbothane when it did kind of arrive, it was pretty popular, right? It's incredibly
Yeah,
dense. It really does offer a pretty different sound to a lot of other things. So I could see that kind of maybe coming back a little bit. Visionaire says Sorbethane number 1, neoprene number 2. Interesting. I don't think I've seen neoprene in keyboards yet. I would definitely like to.
Really, I've
Um,
definitely seen neoprene in keyboards,
really?
100%.
Okay.
A lot of the foams are just different thicknesses of neoprene under different brand names. Yeah,
Oh, that's
like a lot of the
fair, I
foams that
guess.
like MK Ultra used to cut and things like that. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe I just have it. So like when I think neoprene, I used to be a scuba diver. I'm a certified diver for those that don't know, and a lot of wetsuits tend to be made of neoprene. And to me, I've never really felt that kind of material in anywhere in keyboards before, but I could definitely see like other styles or densities or firmnesses or whatever of neoprene.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, I guess it would just sort of act like a foam, but like in wetsuits, it's obviously it feels like a lot more dense. But yeah, don't people pour silicone into their tray mount cases? Says Sturek. I have never seen anyone pour silicone into a tray mount case, but I would not be
No, I've never
surprised.
seen that.
I
Yeah, I
that
mean,
wouldn't
I'd be
surprise me at
interested
all.
to. Like as I say, I'm working with resins because it's more about how to change the sound necessarily than dampen the sound. What I'm trying to look at, so I'm trying to look at options to maybe increase sound, reflect sound, develop sound, rather than necessarily absorb sound. And a lot of these mods are absorbing sound. Like if you were going to put resin in there, it would reflect sound to some extent. If you're going to put silicone in there, because silicone is quite thick and rubbery, it's going to absorb the sound. It's going to reduce it out, which is exactly what foam and tape and everything else is seeming to do. So yeah, I'd be interested to see how resin would work against silicone, but I'm pretty sure that the silicone would just dampen the sound more.
Yeah. Uh, Tutik, I never know how to pronounce this name. I'm sorry. Says cement. That'd be interesting. And I've
People have done
seen
cement cases, right?
several cement keyboards now throughout my journey in keyboards. I've even typed on one. It wasn't that great, but it was cool, right? Like it's a neat project. Cement, oh man, I don't see cement ever really becoming prevalent in keyboards, like to that extent, at least.
Sand.
I
Just fill it with sand.
can't
That's
I
what you need
can't
to
see it.
do.
Cyber Sam says your favorite flavor of Hubba Bubba gum. That's what you should fill your keyboards with. Interesting,
Nice.
interesting. Yeah, so I don't know. I think my let's start to talk about our takeaways from this topic. I think Jay. So I think my biggest takeaway is going to be I'd like to see boards designed with either acoustics in mind to not have to worry about things like foam in tape, or I want to see boards designed with foam and tape in mind, instead of just being like an additional afterthought on some cases, right? I'd like to see it have more purpose, but only in some keyboards. I don't want to necessarily see a ton of tape and foam towards the higher end, where when you start paying that kind of money for keyboards, like you're hopefully paying for a better thorough design process for things like both feel and acoustics. So I think that's kind of my main takeaway here. Totally
Yeah,
fine
I
with tape
think
and foam under the right conditions. I don't want to see it like super universal. Like I worry that foam is starting to reach, and now with how hype the tape mod has been, a lot of the big name streamers are doing it. So it's kind of starting to trickle down to everyone now. So I worry about the kind of future of these kind of modifications, but I do, for all intents and purposes, think that it's good that our community is experimenting with this, because at our heart, we're a very customizing and DIY centered community, and it's good that we're doing things like this. But I would like to see the products themselves kind of stand on their own a bit more and not necessarily have to rely on modifications like taper foam, at least towards the higher end of boards.
sure. I don't think I totally disagree with that. I think I pretty much do agree and align to it. I think there is a part of me that thinks that, materials science should be explored more in terms of what that can offer for acoustics.
Sure.
Like some violins sound better if they have certain wax on the outside rather than, a varnish or whatever. Things like that. I think changing the properties of the material by applying coatings and stuff is what really interests me. I don't necessarily mean like sticking tape on. I mean like what can we do to, because you can get sound absorbent and sound reflecting sprays and other things like that. I think my feel is let's look at those lining cases with like resin or whatever else, something like that. What does that do for sound? I think that's where I want to be, like proper material science and how to apply materials to it rather than just slapping a bit of tape on something.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that in mind, we're going to be talking about our sponsors for just a moment, but we will be going to a Q&A, as we always do. So if you guys have questions, whether they be about today's topics or keyboards in general, or maybe even something else, definitely let us know right now. You can feel free to type those questions in the chat right now. You can use the @TopClack tag. That helps us out quite a bit. And yeah, with that in mind, let's talk about our freaking awesome sponsors, because we have a few of them. Starting with
We
the
do.
wonderful Novel Keys. You probably know them already. You probably love them already, or at least you probably should. Novel Keys doing a lot for the community, as they always have. Have several things going on right now, including GMK Oblivion V3.1. I believe this ends relatively soon. Yeah, August 4th. So you're coming up on the end of this. If you missed out on it, now's a good time to get in it. If you missed one of the previous runs, bam, there you go. Lots of accoutrement to go alongside it too. So maybe if you're interested in something like an NK65 in the Oblivion theme, he's got you covered there, as well as desk mats and my personal favorite, the Rama M6C. Just look at how freaking awesome that is. This is
So
really
good, right?
really stunning. Yeah, that's just a freaking awesome art piece. Barring that, they have numerous other things available. Of course, they have PBT PBOW, which is purple blue on white, which I thought was kind of interesting. This is a relatively inexpensive PBT key set, so if you're in the market for something, maybe a little bit more in stock, and not breaking the bank, that could be something for you. But barring that, lots of desk mats, switches, lubes, what have you. Lots of stuff going on. If you're buying something in stock, use promo code Clack. That's one word, no capitals. That'll get you 5% off anything you're buying in stock. So definitely take advantage of that.
Absolutely. And as Visionaire says, don't forget the NK meetup in October. Novel Keys is hosting a meetup in October later on this year. So if you're interested in that, do take a look at it as well.
Yeah. I was looking for an update on it on the site, but I don't actually see one on the site.
I
So
don't think there actually is one. I think we're waiting on Mike to announce more details. Yeah, but
yeah,
it is going to happen. Yeah.
yeah,
Moving
totally.
over to our second sponsor today, it is Kono.store. These guys have got a few things going on right now. First thing, EPBT Axolotls is doing really, really well. If you like a cute, fun set, that might be for you. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more serious, they also have EPBT Wooyin Zuyin, which is a great name and very difficult to say. But this has got some really cool sub-legends. And again, it's EPBT, so it's a great price with some pretty solid compatibility as well. So definitely take a look at those. Failing that, GMK Shadow, if you're into GMK sets, is in its final week, so maybe take a look at that and pick it up before it ends. And also, GMK Retro Trip has just started its group buy too. If you're more interested in keyboards from Kono, then they do have the Kono 84, which is a really super cheap bare bones hot swap 75%. It has a ton of different features, and bang for buck, it might just be the cheapest keyboard on the market that gives you the most bang for buck.
Yeah, I have one sitting behind me. I still haven't messed around with it yet, but I definitely plan to. So, very much looking forward to what this kind of caliber of keyboard can be at this price. Very much looking forward to that. Moving over to KBD fans, they have numerous things going on, of course, as well, including Enjoy PBT Round 3 Kuroshiro. This is definitely one of the more popular Enjoy PBT sets to ever happen. And this one is still up for pre-order right now, so if that's your thing, definitely make sure to check that out. If not, there's lots of other key sets available, including proxies for just about everything under the sun. Unsurprising there. Under the shop section, rather, they have a restock section, which I've been kind of a big fan of lately. So a lot of their popular items that they sell out a lot of, you can get updates here a little bit quicker than just searching otherwise. And they also have a nice kind of coming soon section here as well. So very much preparing you for what is to come on KVD fans. Also, they have something coming which is kind of interesting to me as well, which is this Odin full size. They're calling it a full size. I don't necessarily want to call it. This looks more 1800ish to me personally for this layout, but it is an interesting looking board nonetheless. So definitely keeping my eye on that. I've kind of been into like big customs lately, so these are kind of interesting to me.
You buy a Hyper 7?
Uh, Not that big.
Brian, come on.
I don't have the desk space to support something like a Hyper 7, all right? Don't give me that shit. Tell us about Mechanus, because they have some things in stock now.
Yeah, they finally have some things back in stock. So going over to Mechanics, Leandrin's wonderful store, you can pick some things back up in stock. Not everything is back, but some things are. For example, you can pick up some of the 60% mounting plates. V1 and V2.2 of his mounting plates in both ANSI and ISO are available on the store right now as well. There's also Mechanics branded carrying cases which are in stock as well. So if you want a carrying case for keyboards, you can pick one of those up. Speaking about foam, he does have the branded Mechanics dampening foam in stock as well, which fits all of their tray mount boards, as well as a series of desk pads too. They also have the new V2 screw-in stabilizers from Duroc, which are the ultramarine ones. Now these are really good because the clip has actually changed for V2 as well. They're still the Duroc stabilizers we know and love, but the clip is much more secure in terms of where the wire fits in, and they're much more rigid. So definitely check those out if you're interested too.
Yeah, been using these with a lot of good success lately because he sent me a bunch of them, so very much happy about that. And I also wanted to point out too, once I find him here, that he actually has the PCBs restocked as well. Not only the WT60D, which I'm a big fan of, but also the WT60H. The H is really interesting because I feel like this kind of flew under the radar, but this is a hot swap PCB that has like a good layout. It's not standard ONZ, it's not standard this or that, it's not even like HHKB. It has a 7U bottom row, split right shift, full backspace though. So this is like the Leandrin like specific layout. This is the layout that he likes. And
Oh, there's an ISO version as well.
there's an ISO
Interesting.
version as well. Yeah. So
That's a solid ISO layout, is that? That's a really
so
solid ISO
this is
layout.
actually a pretty sick PCB, and I have one of these as well as one of the V2 mounting plates that we're going to be working with on an upcoming build stream as well. So very very
Nice.
cool to kind of show that around as well. And also I don't know if he sent you any of these, but he sent me some of these new Mechanisk hydro flasks.
No, he didn't. No, that's really cool. I
Yeah,
like
so
that.
we have Mechanisk branded hydro flasks now. This is one of the two versions, at least two versions, I think. He sent me two. There's that one, which has been my water bottle since it arrived at my door because I've been freaking loving it. There's also kind of one that has this kind of fancy like gasket top, where we're gasket mounting bottles, guys. So this is kind of like more of like a hot drink one that keeps your drinks like really hot. You can use it for cold too, but
Nice.
also Mechanisk branded. So very, very, very cool stuff. I've been getting a lot of use out of these, and I've been really enjoying them. So hopefully those will hit the store soon because I've seen a few people
Yeah.
asking about those, and I have no idea. I have no idea when they're hitting the store. But now that things are starting to restock, hopefully it'll be pretty soon. I think they actually might even be on the Norwegian website already.
Right, okay, I'm gonna have to take a look because I actually dropped my water bottle on the way into the workshop the other day and completely and utterly dented it so badly that it lost the seal on the inside between the two layers. So it now
Yep.
keeps nothing cold and nothing hot for more than about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. Nathan Alpha Man in chat. Hello. Glad to see you back,
Hey
man. It's
man.
been a while. He says Brian rocking the middle part. Yeah, my hair's getting. It's. Yeah, we don't talk about it. All right. Yeah, nice little teacup. Yeah, yeah. It's a little 16 ounce. I've used it for tea already. It worked really well. Kept my tea hot for
Nice.
a long time. But mostly I've just been using this one as just like a water bottle because I just pound water throughout the day. It is outrageously hot right now. So yeah, Q&A segment, guys. So if you have any questions before we head out for the day, definitely let us know. We can get those in. Visionaire says, "Wait, there's no hydrate command. Better get used to that water bottle, or better get used out of that water bottle." Oh my gosh, I know. I need to add the commands. I thought the hydrate one was like a default one, but I guess it's not. Because
No,
I
it's
feel
one of the
like
manual ones.
literally every streamer I've ever watched that has commands has hydrate as like a command, and it's like always the same level pretty much. So I thought that was like a default one for some reason.
I'll make his one now.
Look,
I'll do it right now.
I'm like the worst Twitch user of all time. I swear, guys. Best ONSI layout, full backspace, but split right shift. Yeah, no, I agree. The only way that PCB could be better for me is if it offered stepped caps lock. I think that'd be kind of nice, but I know it's not for everyone. So yeah, how else am I going to spend 20k channel points? Oh my gosh, that's a lot of channel points. I'm gonna come up.
We,
I'm gonna come up with things. I'm gonna come up with good things you can use your channel points on. I promise you guys. I promise. Hold me to this. All right.
there you go. We have a hydrate command.
Make us swig some H2O. All right. Oh, you made it a Nightbot command. I think he was talking about the channel point integration on Twitch.
Yeah, we can do that one later on.
That works too.
I can. That's what we've got for now. I will make that one later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, can I do it now? Can I do it now? I'll have a look.
Uh, navigating like how to customize like Twitch stuff is so obnoxious sometimes. Like, I swear they move things around all the time. Streaking Bison has 31k. Keep saving those points up, guys. You're gonna be able to put those to use. I swear. Kajata has 74,000. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's a lot. You've been watching it for a while. Yeah, keep saving them up. You guys will have a purpose for them. Trust me. I don't know what it is yet, but it's gonna be something. It's gonna be something worth it. We'll do like giveaways and a bunch of other stuff for them too. It'll be cool. It'll be fun. At 100k, you can earn a date with Brian. At 100 points, you can earn a date with me. You don't even need 100k.
Brian's cheap, guys.
I'm really cheap. Yeah, you got to pay for dinner though. You got to pay for dinner. Not with channel points either. Redeem. Oh my gosh, guys, please. All right. Well, I guess no one really has questions. I didn't see any. I'm scrolling back now. But no, I think everyone's pretty good. Where do I redeem the date? All right, look. you guys want a date option with me? You guys maybe will be careful what you ask for. Right? You guys are silly. All right. Well, I think that's probably a good time to wrap it up. I'll go think about what we want the commands to do, or the channel points rather.
Oh, I think I've just figured it out.
You got it. Okay.
I think so.
Morgan Carver says, "My wife won't approve, but after she sees the beard being so luscious, she'd get it." Oh my gosh. Well,
nice.
Bring her along too.
Nice.
We can go out on a group date. No big deal. We don't what's the word I'm looking for? We don't ostracize people. We don't we're very welcoming. Just bring on all the people. We'll have a big date. It'll be fun. Oh, there you go, Jay. Jay's all over it. 300 points?
I've kind of half got it done. Yeah, I've kind of half got it sorted out.
I actually don't even know like what a high amount of points is. Like
74,000 apparently.
Well, 74,000 seems like a lot. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, like 5 digits sounds like a lot to begin with. So how many points do you get for watching? Like, is there like you get X amount for a time?
Like a few hundred an hour, I think. Like maybe 1,000 an hour or something. Maybe not quite that many. Okay. So yeah, but we can control how many points people get and what they kind of get for doing the points. Like they can highlight messages if they want for 170 channel points and stuff like that. So yeah, we'll work it out.
You get more if you interact as well. Okay, so if you talk in chat, you get more points too. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
correct. Yeah.
Guys, keep saving up the points. You will have a purpose for them. All right. I know I'm very late to the party on this, but better late than never. I think. I would hope. Storesnuts is asking you, Jay, what was in the Salvin box that you got? Is there something you can share?
Oh, I can't talk about it yet. I wish I could, but it's. If you saw it on the Insta stories, keep watching them over the weekend, maybe early next week, and you might see what it was. I can't promise anything yet, but I can't talk about it just yet either.
Fair enough. All right, so I'm kind of looking through people we can raid here as we come to the tail end of this stream. Anybody have any?
You have to hydrate, Brian. Sturek has redeemed the hydrate. You have to hydrate. I
gotta get used to seeing these in the like the feed now. All right, cool. I'm a hydrating machine, man. r/hydro homies. Shout out. Good stuff. Mint Lodica is on. Is she? She just recently started streaming, I think. Let's see. Yeah, we can. What's she building? A bolt. 40% Alice. I have no idea what that is. All right, we can check out Mint. She was recently on Next on Deck. Great episode. She's pretty awesome. So we'll raid her. Seems like pretty much everyone else has like a lot more viewers. So She seems like a good target to raid. So let's go over there. Let's say something wholesome, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's stream. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you just caught maybe towards the end of it, definitely check out the VOD as well. I think we had some pretty good conversation, as well as our last episode on GMK was also really good. Definitely go back and watch that as well. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day. Any closing thoughts, Jay, while I queue up this raid?
No, just thanks very much for being here, guys. Love you as always, and let's go say something nice.
Yeah, let's go say something nice and wholesome to Mint Lodica. She's great, and she's working on a pretty interesting looking keyboard. So, queue up this raid. Get ready for this, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and if you want to see more of us, tune in on Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific. I will be doing some keyboard stuff for Mental Health Monday. I have no idea exactly what I'm going to be doing yet, but it's either going to be a build or tape testing or something else. So definitely come hang out for that, 4 p.m. Pacific on Monday, every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Come hang out with me, and we have a good time, and we play music. It's fun. It's fun stuff.
That was good.
heck yes. So queue up for this raid, guys, and let's get over there and be nice. Spread some love, because the community always needs more of it. The world always needs more of it.
Oh, sure. 100%.
All right. Have a good one, guys. I'm going to start this raid now.
See you guys.